Hi everyone, welcome to our MOOC this evening. I'll just wait another minute or so to let people join. I can see some comments coming in on the chat, which is great. Hi everyone, welcome. Really lovely to have you all here with us tonight. Hi everyone. Really great to see so many people join us for today's session. Brilliant. Well, as I said, welcome to our MOOC this evening. In this one-off session, you'll be hearing from Sarah, a Code First Girls instructor, who will introduce you to React, a JavaScript framework used by many companies. Backstage, you have myself, Kim, and Helen from Code First Girls. We both work in the programs and delivery team, so if you have any questions at all about Code First Girls or other upcoming classes and events, please do put them on the chat and we will try our best to reply to you during the session. Got a few more hellos coming in. Hi everyone, really great to have you all join us. Hello all, hi. Brilliant. I'm delighted to announce that Zühlke, a global innovation service provider, is our partner sponsor for the session today. Helen will just share the link to the Zühlke website with you all in the chat, so please do have a look at their website to find out more information. After Sarah has delivered the content, we will be joined by Amelia, a software engineer at Zühlke. Sarah and Amelia will take React-specific questions after the content is delivered, so please do put your React questions on the YouTube chat for Sarah and Amelia to answer later. After the Q&A, we will also be joined by Ursina, an HR specialist at Zühlke, who will share a bit more about the company, and we'll also hear more from Amelia about her journey into tech and her career at Zühlke. Just a very quick little bit of information about some upcoming activities with Code First Girls. In celebration of International Women's Day on the 8th of March, Code First Girls will be running lots and lots of MOOCs throughout March. We recently added 3 to our website just today, so please do have another look and sign up for another, or maybe 2 or 3 of our upcoming MOOCs. Again, Helen will share the link to our MOOCs page in the YouTube chat. In addition to that, we do also have several upcoming career switcher courses this spring. So if you are looking to springboard into a tech career, you can find out more via the link that Helen will also share. Before I welcome Sarah onto the virtual stage, just to let you all know that the YouTube video will be up and available for about a week or 2 after the session today. So if you would like to rewatch the content, you can do by visiting the very same YouTube link. I will now welcome Sarah onto the stream to tell you all about React.
Thanks, Kim. It's really nice to see you all here today. So today we're going to cover React.js, why you might want to use it and how you can get started. So I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see my screen before I get started? Kim, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. All good, Sarah.
Fantastic. All right, so we'll start with a little bit about me. My name is Sarah. I am a full stack software engineer in my day job, and I'm also a bit of a React fan. I'm also a Code First Girls instructor. I've taught various courses, both in person and virtually, and I've taught the web dev course a few times as well. So for those of you that have maybe tried the web dev course and are looking to get started with React, hopefully you'll find this really useful. So I'd like to find out a little bit about you before we get into the content today. So I've got a little Mentimeter poll here. If you've used these before, you'll know what to do. So if you just go to menti.com and enter in the code 7232947, I've got a couple of questions about you to kind of work out why you're here today and what you'd like to get from the session. So, yep, question number 1, why would you like to learn React? Okay, so we've got one in already. Want to switch to a career in technology? Okay, yeah, looks like we've got quite a mix, but a lot of people wanting to switch to a career in technology. We'll cover a little bit more about that later on. Okay, to add new skills to your existing career. Yep, React can be really useful in a number of different roles. All right, hobbies and personal projects as well. We've got a few people interested in that. You can definitely do a lot of fun things with React. Cool, we've got a few people who have maybe heard about React before, but want to learn a little bit more as well. So we've got a real mix. Hopefully you'll all find this interesting today. Awesome. And we'll go on to the next question. And that is, what is your current level of experience with React? Have you used it before? Never heard of it before today? Just curious to learn more? Okay. Again, quite a mix. No matter what your experience, you're not alone here. So yeah, please feel free to ask any questions, because if you're stuck on something, someone else is probably in the same position. But yeah, it looks like we've got a real mix, but a lot of people have heard this word React, but maybe never used it before. So we will solve the mystery of what is React next. All right, thank you everyone for participating in the poll. So what we're going to cover today, the first thing we're going to cover is why would you want to use a JavaScript framework in the first place? And then we'll talk about React in particular and what it's useful for. Then we'll go on to talk about the kind of basics of React. And we're going to go into a live demo so I can show you in some code what React looks like and how that would compare to your HTML and JavaScript that you may have used in previous projects. If you've done the Code First Girls web dev course, hopefully it'll give you some kind of context compared to that, what React will look like. And then at the end, as I said before, we're going to have a little chat about careers in web development, why React is a good thing to learn if you're interested in a career in web dev. And then we'll kind of summarize, and I'll send out these slides after class as well, so you have links to all the resources that we've used. One final thing I forgot to say is please do leave any comments in the YouTube, and any ones that we can't get to in the session today, we can try and reply to them later on. So hopefully we can answer all your questions. So we're going to start with a brief history of JavaScript. You may have seen JavaScript before. It is a web scripting language that was created over the course of 10 days in 1995. If you think back to what websites looked like in 1995, that'll give you an idea of what JavaScript was originally for. So yes, it was to put some extra functionality in web user interfaces, and we can use it to add more interactivity to any sites that we have written in HTML. So if you've done the Introduction to Web Dev course with Code First Girls, you'll have seen JavaScript before. If you've not done that course, I'd highly recommend it. And JavaScript is actually the most popular programming language in the world, and it has multiple frameworks that give us extensive functionality to it. So we have JavaScript. Why do we need a JavaScript framework? So JavaScript was created more than 25 years ago when the web looked a lot different. In modern web apps, they can be quite big, and there's a lot of functionality we'd like to add. So JavaScript frameworks give us that extra functionality and offer some extra benefits too. So the first one is reusability of components. This means that we can use the same components in multiple places on our website. A good example of this would be your nav bar, something that would be on every page of your website. You could reuse that component. The second one is maintainability and readability. So usually when you use JavaScript frameworks, there's less code for you to maintain because of this reusability. And this is very important in industry when you work in a team and you're all working on the same code. It's also helpful for your future self when you have to go back and work out what your code is doing. Another thing that we get with JavaScript frameworks is statefulness. So this is data that's subject to change in your code, and the components can keep track of what state they're in. We'll touch more on that in a second. And the final one is it allows you to integrate well with JavaScript libraries. So there's lots of things available on the internet for us to use, and by using a framework, you can integrate with them better. There's 3 kind of popular JavaScript frameworks at the moment. So we've got React, we've got Vue.js, and Angular. Vue.js is a kind of newer one, which is just emerging, and React and Angular are well established and highly used in industry. Which one you choose is kind of up to you, but I'm going to convince you why you should learn React. So React is very popular in industry. It's used by Netflix, Instagram, New York Times, and many, many more. It's developed and maintained by Facebook. That means that Facebook keep it current and up to date and add security patches and things to it. React has a really strong community of users. This means that there's a lot of tools available for React and a lot of documentation, a lot of Q&As, a lot of Stack Overflow articles. So the community of users makes it really a good thing to learn, especially if you're first starting out and you're going to have a lot of questions. Another benefit of React is that your UI is split into reusable components that you can use across your website. And it's also really good for single page web apps. So these are these websites, I'm sure you've seen ones like it, where it's all kind of on the same page and you've got the nav bar at the top, kind of scrolls down for you. That's a really kind of nice modern app that you can have. And finally, the UI kind of automatically updates based on your state of your components. So this means that we don't have to locate and update the DOM components manually. So if you think back to what you might have seen in JavaScript before, if you want to change a piece of text in a HTML element, you have to locate that, from your JavaScript code and update things. And it can be quite hard to kind of link your JavaScript and HTML together and kind of see how those 2 bits in the code join up together. So React makes that a little bit easier as well. So now we know why React, let's cover what is React. So I'm just going to quickly recap on the syntax of HTML and JavaScript. So HTML is our hypertext markup language, which describes the structure of a website. So if we look at this example, we've got a body tag, we've got a h1 tag, which is our header, and we've got a div, which contains a paragraph, and it says this is Sarah's site. So that's what our HTML is like. And then we also have JavaScript, which is our web scripting language. And this is used for the logic of a website. So what's its behavior? How does it interact with users? So if here we have a name is Sarah, a string, which is this is my site. And this is how we would update something in our HTML. So we would do document.get elements by ID, and then we can set the text content to the string. So these are the kind of things that we can use HTML and JavaScript for, just as a kind of reminder. And now I will show you what that looks like in React. So React uses something called JSX, which is a language that combines our markup and our logic into one. And if you look at this, it probably looks like a weird kind of hybrid of JavaScript and HTML. And that's basically what it is. So here we have const name equals Sarah, the same as we had before. And then we return something. And the thing that we are returning is some HTML code. And we can inject our variable here. So another thing to note here is that all of our components in React are functions. So a function takes some input, does something, and returns some output. In this case, the function is returning some HTML code with some JavaScript inside it as well. So the benefit of this syntax is that the functionality that we have with our JavaScript is located right next to our HTML that references it. So we'll see in a bigger example in a second. So the first thing to talk about React is our components. So the components are our kind of building blocks of our apps. They are reusable blocks of code that can be used throughout our React app. So thinking back to the navbar example, when you're creating a website in HTML, you probably had to copy and paste that navbar across every single file. And anytime you made a change to the navbar, you'd have to remember to go in and fix it in all the different places. So with React, we can just create one component for that navbar, and we can use it in multiple places. And that means when we change it in one place, it'll change in them all automatically. So what is a component under the hood? It's a function that takes in an object containing some properties, and these are known as the props. And that's our input of the function. And then the output of the function is some HTML. So our props are read-only. So we can't make changes to them, we can only read them. And yeah, as I was saying, the components represent the different elements of our website. So for example, the navbar could be a component, the header section could be a component, or our go to the basket button could be a component. And our components can be nested as well. So a component can contain another component. For example, the navbar section, that could be a component that contains the go to basket button, which is another component. And you want to use a component anywhere where you might be using that thing multiple times. So we'll just have a wee look at this example. This is an example of a component, a very simple one. So it's a function. And then we give that component a name. We pass in some props to that component. And then we return from this function some HTML. So it's a h1, which is our header. And then these curly braces here is how we reference something in JavaScript from within the HTML kind of syntax. So this is how we would reference the name property in the props. So how do we render that on the page? We do react.dom.render element. So this is our element here. And we're rendering a welcome element. So you'll see the function is called welcome. The element is referenced as a welcome. And the property that we're passing in here is name. And the value of name is Sarah. So I put some links at the bottom of the slide where you can read a little bit more about components. And you'll see some components in action when we go into our demo. The next thing to talk about here is state. So the state represents the current state of the app, and we can display that to our users. So yes, the state is the current value of some variable in our app. And React allows us to render this to let the user know what the state of the app is. So some examples of this could be your countdown clock that tells you how many minutes you've got left before your basket expires, or your online shopping basket, which might have a little number which updates every time you add something to your basket, or the list of your Facebook friends who are currently online. You know, that little bar down the side that shows you who's online, and that's updating all the time with different people in the list. That could be used with state as well. So I've got a little example to show you to look at state. And I sent out an email before class with the link to this. if you want to open it up and try it for yourself. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So let me show you what we've got here. For React, we do need a tiny bit of HTML, and this is just a div that we can attach all of our React code to. I've got a tiny bit of CSS for this example that just centers the text on the screen. So I'm going to close that because that's not too exciting. And here is our React code. So let me zoom in one more. So we have our clock class. So this is a React component. And there's a few different elements of this component. It's a little bit complex component. So the first part is the constructor, and this is where we set up the component and what's going to be in the state of this component. So we have our constructor, which takes in the props. This line, super props, means that we inherit the props from the component that this is in. So remember I mentioned before that components can be nested. We can take the state from the components that we're nested inside of. So that's what's happening in this line. And then here on line 6 is where we define the state and what's in the state. So we only have one variable in the state here, which is our timer variable. And it has a value of this .props.seconds. So I'll show you where that gets put in. So when we're rendering this component, this clock component, we're giving the property seconds the value of 10. And that means that we're going to have 10 seconds on our timer. So yes, the timer variable is initialized to this .props.seconds. So the next part that we have in our component is component did mount. This is what happens when the component mounts on the page. So when this renders on your web page, what happens? And this is going to create a little timer with an interval of 1,000 seconds. So 1,000 milliseconds. So every second or 1,000 milliseconds, it will do the tick function, which decrements the counter. So goes 10, 9, 8, and so on until we have nothing left, and the timer will be set to times up. So timer is our state. To update the state, we call this function, this.setState, and we say the variable and what value we'd like to change that to. Component will unmount means that we'll stop calling the tick function once the component is unmounted from the page. And this render function, this returns the HTML containing our state here as the number of seconds remaining. So I know there's quite a lot of code here, and we've only got an hour today. So what I would say is to get this code pen on your computer and try playing about with it and see if you can get things to change. So for example, if I try changing the property seconds and make it 15 instead, have a think about what you would expect to happen. And here we go. So it starts at 15 and it counts down with 1 tick every second. So I'd encourage you to take that example and have a little look around for yourself and play about with it. As I said, you've got the YouTube comments here where you can put any comments you have, and we also have the you can reach out to your Code for Skills teachers if you're working on a course there as well. I'm also happy to take questions if you grab me on LinkedIn. Okay, so we're now going to go into the kind of main section of this lesson, where we're going to show you a demo of what React code looks like, how that compares to what you might have seen already, and hopefully convince you why React is awesome. So again, I sent this out before class, but I'll follow up after with the link for this. All the code that we used for this demo is on GitHub, so you can pull that down onto your computer and run it yourself, and use it as a starting point if you want to practice React as well. So I'm just going to show you what we've built. So this is my ice cream React site. I'm a big fan of ice cream, so I thought this would be a good example to show you. So this is a kind of single page application. We have a few different sections. We have the gallery section, which contains 3 images. We have the flavors section, where the user can pick their favorite ice cream flavor, and it's displayed on the screen. So you can see here, when I choose something different, this value is updated. And the final section is my ice cream shops list. And we have a list here, and I can add my favorite ice cream shops on here, and they'll be displayed on the page. So my current favorite place to get ice cream is my freezer. I've got some Häagen-Dazs there waiting for me after class, so I can add that to my list. And you can see the list updates as the user clicks the add button. Yes, so quite a simple website. We've not got much going on. This is the only page that we've got, and there's a few different components. It's quite plain, so it's a good place to start, and you can obviously add more things in if you'd like. So this is also running on GitHub pages. I've included some instructions for how you can get a React site working on GitHub pages as well, if you want to host your website when you're done with it. So let me show you what this looks like. Oh, apologies. All right, so first of all, I'm going to show you what that site would look like if we had just written it in plain HTML, because this is probably what you're familiar with if you've done a Code for Skills course before. So if we quickly have a look here, we've got our doc-type HTML, we've got a head section where we would link to our JavaScript file and the style sheet that we use. And then we have our body section where we define the structure. So let's have a look here. We've got the header, we've got the gallery section where we would put the images, we've got the flavors section, and we've got the shop section down here. And then all of our JavaScript is defined in our JavaScript file. And we would have various different functions to add all the interactive functionality. So for example, the submit button, the input box, the selector, we would have a JavaScript function for that. And they would all be in a JavaScript file together. If we have multiple pages on this website, you would also find that the nav bar section would be duplicated, or if we wanted to include this gallery in multiple places, we would need to copy and paste this code into all our HTML files as well. So this is fine, and this all works. And a lot of websites are written in HTML, but I'm sure you can see that this file is quite big, and there's a lot of text here, there's a lot to read. And if we were to extend this website to add a lot more functionality, you can imagine that the HTML files would become quite big and maybe quite hard to navigate through them all. The same with our JavaScript. We would just have lots of functions there, and it might be quite hard to kind of link up what's in that JavaScript file to what's going on all these pages. So it works, but there is room for improvement. So this is where React comes in. So what I'm going to show you next is side by side what this page would look like in HTML and what it would look like in React. So here's our before and here's our after. I hope you can agree that it's a little bit easier to read. I know some of the syntax will be new, but in terms of seeing what's going on here, this is kind of one of our key principles of React, that we have our different components. So yes, let me quickly show you the different sections here. So it's a function. So everything in React is a function. It's called app. This is a convention of React. There's no inputs for this component. And this returns our home page of our site. So we have our div, which contains the whole app. You'll notice that instead of class, it's class name. This is a feature of JSX. And if you type class by mistake, your editor will probably tell you about it. And if not your editor, your app will complain when you try to run it. So you will get used to the new syntax. And you can see there it says it's a JSX attribute, JSX being our kind of hybrid language of JavaScript and HTML. So we have our navbar section, our header. You'll probably notice this is the same. Then we have our gallery section, flavors section, and shops section. And then at the end, we export the app so that it can be seen by other parts of our React site. So yes, when it comes to looking through your code, I'm sure you'll notice this one's a lot shorter. And we've got these kind of custom HTML tags. So these are our React components, and we will dive into them in just a moment. But yes, so I think that was everything I wanted to show you so far. The next thing I want to do is just dive into this React site more. So I'm going to close up this HTML. And I will show you how to run this site. So again, these instructions are on the GitHub in the README file. So you can absolutely check that out after class to get this running on your machine. So I've already run npm install, which installs all of the dependencies. So React uses a number of different dependencies, which are just kind of other pieces of code written by other people that we include in our project to use, one of them being React itself. So you would run npm install before you do this to get those dependencies installed. Then we can run this project so we can see it in our browser. And you do that by doing npm run start. So here's my site running on my computer. You'll see that it's running on localhost, which is running on your machine on port 3000. So you can get this running and see side by side. And one of the nice things about this is when you make changes and save them, you can automatically see them in your browser. So this is a really useful feature for verifying the changes you've made, haven't broken anything, and that they look the way you expect. So now that we've got this running, let's dive a little bit deeper into what is happening in this app. Okay, so the first component that we will look at is the navbar component. And I'm just going to control click on this, and that allows me to go to the definition of this component. So we'll just quickly go over this syntax again. So the first thing here is our, well, I'll show you the HTML first. So this probably is the most familiar part. So we've got a div of the navbar class, which contains a number of links, a number of anchor links that take us to various sections of the website. So this hash gallery takes us to the gallery section, same with the flavor section and shop section. So this part probably looks quite familiar, but let's look at the rest. So we'll start here, navbar. So we can call this whatever we'd like. And that's one of the benefits of React component is you can give your components names that make sense, and that when you go back to see your code in the future, you can remember what each of the different components are. So we've given this the name navbar. It's a function. Everything in React is a function. And this export default, what happens here is we export this function so that it can be used in different files. So that we can use this navbar in our app.js, we export it here and we can import it here. So you might not have seen this before if you've only used JavaScript, but if you've maybe used Python or Java, you might be familiar with the idea of importing. But yes, it basically allows us to reference other files from our app.js. So we export it here and import it here. So that's our navbar component. It's not really got much functionality in it, but this is an example of how you can use components to separate out different parts of your website. Another nice thing you can do is use them in multiple places. So say, for example, I wanted to add another navbar at the bottom of my site. I can include a navbar component in the bottom here. And if I give this a save and refresh my page, you can see that my navbar is here. If I wanted to, I could use as many as I wanted. There's no limit to how many times you can use a component. So there you go. And the next section we will look at is the gallery component. So this is in our gallery.js file. Another thing to note here, this file structure of React, you can generate that kind of, it's known as boilerplate code, your kind of starting point for any React app. There's a tool called Create React App, which we'll talk about later, which allows you to generate all these files. Most of these all just came with Create React App, other than these components that we've defined. So yeah, you don't have to remember how to create all these files. So yes, the gallery component, again, this is quite a basic component because it just contains HTML. It doesn't have any functionality. But yes, all of our gallery component is returned. Another thing to note is that anything that you return in React needs to be contained within a div. Okay, the next component we'll look at is the flavors component. And this one's a little bit bigger because it's a little bit more exciting. It does a little bit more. So just as a reminder what this component does, the user can choose their favorite ice cream flavor, and that displays on the page. So what have we got here? You'll notice first off that we import React here. That's because we're going to be using React.component, which allows us to use the React functionality. So flavors is a React component. We start with the constructor. which takes in some properties. In this case, we don't pass in any properties. If we did want to, say we wanted to pass in the default, that's how we would do it. So we pass in our props to the constructor. Same as in our other component, we take all the super props, so we inherit the props. And here on line 6 is where we define what's going to be in our state. So in this case, our value is going to be coconut. So that's the default value. That's what it's going to be initialized to. The value being the currently chosen value of our selector. I'll come back to the functionality in a second. But if we look at what's rendered here, so this render function is where we define what's going to be returned in this component. So what's going to be displayed on the screen. And hopefully you can kind of match up this header with this part. We've got our label, pick your favorite flavor, which is here. And then we have our select. You might have used a select before if you've worked with HTML, but that's our little drop down here. So you'll notice the value, and then we've got our curly braces. So we're going to inject something from our code here. So that's going to be this dot state dot value. And if we look back to where we define this state, it starts as coconut. And if I refresh the page here, you'll see that that matches up. So the default value is coconut. We've got our options, and here on change, so this is what functionality we want to happen when the user makes a change. So anytime the user selects something else, this handle change, that function will be called. And then finally, we have the part where your flavor of choice is displayed on the screen. And that's done here on line 27. So your flavor of choice is, and then we've got some bold text. And again, we've got these curly braces, which indicates we're going to inject a value. And that's going to be this.state.value. The final thing I'll show you here is this handle change functionality. So this, anytime there is an event on our selector, i.e. anytime the user chooses something, we set the state to the event target value. So this is kind of default. Most of this code is just kind of how it needs to be. So this refers to this component. Set state is how we can change a value in this.state. Value refers to this value, and event.target.value refers to, that's some kind of default JavaScript value, which refers to the value of what the user has clicked on. So my challenge to you after class is to try and add some extra options here, and to maybe try and change the default ice cream flavor to something else. And as before, we have to export all of our components so that they can be used in other places. So that's what's happening on line 33 here. Our final component we have in this example is our shops component. And if we just remember back to what this does, the user can type something in and that gets added to the list. So let's quickly look in here. So again, we have to import React here so that we can create a component with some functionality. We have our constructor where everything gets set up. And this time we have two things in the state. and you'll notice the way they're defined is by the name, a colon, and then the value. So in this case, we've got a list where the initial values are Giannetta's Gelataria, Dairy Queen, and Luca's Gelato. So this is an array. And we also have another thing in the state, which is item. And that's the value of what's in this box. And that starts off as nothing. If I define this as something else, you'll see it gets updated. Whoops, only if I save it though. Apologies. So we're running a little bit low on time, so I'll just point you to a couple of things here. The render function is where we define what's going to get displayed on the screen. Return is what gets returned from this function. Handle change, again, is what happens anytime that this component changes, so anytime the user types something in. And handle submit is what happens when you click the add button. So again, I'd encourage you to play a bit with this, try making some changes and see what happens. Okay, so I will refer back to the slides now. I know this was a fast example, but I would really encourage you to get this running on your computer and have a little play about, see if you can break things. What we say in software engineering, we say fail fast. The sooner you fail, the sooner you learn, and you can make changes based on that. So definitely give it a go. So the final thing we wanted to touch on here is what can we do with React? How can we turn this into a career? And kind of summarize what we've chatted about today. So when it comes to jobs with React, let me just grab my notes. Yes, web apps are used in a huge variety of industries, obviously used in tech, but also in finance, in education, in e-commerce. Something else to note is that even if a company doesn't have a website that's facing external to consumers, it still might use web apps in other places. So for example, in the shops, their stock system might use a web app, or in a bank, their intranet site might be a web app. So yeah, web apps are used absolutely everywhere. And JavaScript frameworks allow us to more easily manage our code for our web apps in comparison to HTML and JavaScript alone. The fact that it makes them more easy to manage means that they're very popular in industry. I'd encourage you to have a little look at websites that you use with interactivity built in. You could use your social media, your favorite online shops. Have a think about what web framework might be used and what components might make up those websites. You can probably do some research, do some Googling and work out what web frameworks are used in various different apps that you use. And another thing about learning a web framework is that it can be a very lucrative skill, and there's some really good job prospects for it as well. For example, the median salary of a React dev is quite high, quite a bit above the national average here. So yeah, there's some good job prospects if you learn web development. And don't take my word for it. I did some research before class, and if you do a React search on Indeed.com, 3,000 jobs at the moment are advertising roles with React as a skill. So plenty of options for you all. When it comes to getting a new role, there's a few different ways you can go about that. So you could join an entry-level role or a graduate scheme. You could try and do a career change, so moving to a role with more exposure to technical projects. And you can also look at doing agency work as well. With React, some of the roles that you could do are, you could be a developer, a web developer, a software engineer, a business analyst, a usability expert, a user interface designer, or many more. There's a lot of roles that you can use your web dev skills in. So to summarize what we've talked about today, JavaScript frameworks allow us to do more with JavaScript and to make our code more maintainable and readable. As such, it's very popular in industry, used by lots of large organizations and trusted by them as well. React allows us to split up our web app into reusable components, which maintain their state. This is important in industry when we're working with big web apps, and also web apps that interact with the backend. And yeah, this is just the start. Once you've got a React app set up, you can add in all sorts of different integrations and libraries. And if you just do a Google for JavaScript libraries, you'll find loads of things you can include. And React makes it really easy because you can just import them. So in terms of what you can do next, I would say choose a web development framework. Doesn't have to be React, but it absolutely could be. And just get stuck in, get a project on the go, think about something that you'd like to create, and get started. So yeah, I think this is sometimes the hardest part is getting started with something. So I've got a couple tips for you. In terms of starting a project, either think of a website that you'd be interested in creating. Maybe you're part of a society at uni and you want to make a website for them, or whatever else. You could also use a project you've already created, like for example, your Code First Girls project. If you've done one of those, see if you could move that into React. For getting your code set up, use Create React App, which allows you to generate some boilerplate code, or you can take the repo that we use today and use that as a starting point. Yeah, and keep learning. Web development and technology in general is really fast moving, so you'll need to keep up to date. The frameworks change over time, and the frameworks that are popular can sometimes change as well. Because there's always new libraries out there to help you. And my final piece of advice, don't be afraid to Google. I am a professional software engineer, and I ask Google about 20 questions every day. Don't be afraid to just do your research, look things up, follow tutorials. There's a lot of really good code-along tutorials on the React.js website, so I definitely recommend that as a starting place. But yeah, just keep learning. And as Kim said, there's a lot of CFG courses happening too. So lots of things you can add to your toolkit. So I've got a little project that you can do after class. So have a little read about that. And thank you so much for listening to today. I hope you learned something new and you're feeling motivated to go and do some more research about React and get started using it. All right, I think I will hand back to Kim to moderate the questions.
There I am. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was really, really brilliant. I will bring Amelia from Zühlke on to the live stream or virtual stage, as it were, as well. Brilliant.
Hello.
Hi, Amelia. Hey.
You're right.
Good, thank you. How are you doing?
Great, Sarah. I really enjoyed that. Thanks.
Amelia, do you want to do a very quick intro to yourself before I get stuck in with the many questions that have come through on the chat?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I'm Amelia, and I've worked at Zühlke for just under a year, so I'm quite new to this field. And yeah, I'm here to answer questions and stuff.
Brilliant. Well, we've had a lot come through on the YouTube chat. Some of them are very specific to React. Some are a little bit more general about working in tech or about learning technical languages. One has come through from Erin, and I'll pop it up on the screen. And this is very specific to React. but can you clarify what unmounted means? And I'll let you both just jump in and answer the questions.
Yeah, it basically just means taking it off the page. I think so. If you're mounting something, you're putting it into what we call the DOM, which don't worry too much about that. But yeah, if you're unmounting it, you're basically just taking it back off the page. I think that's right. Yeah, she's nodding. Okay, cool. Next.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much. I'll move on. Okay, so we've got some other questions coming in. Okay, this is a really good question, quite specific to Sarah's ice cream project. But Hilda has asked, when adding, do you also use a database?
That's a very good question. So yes, the React state is the scope of it is like your website. So if I'm not describing this very well at all, the things you add to your list, you'll find that they're not persisted. So if you refresh your page, they won't be there anymore. But if you wanted them to be persisted and be able to view them back later, you would add a database. And there's a few different ways you can add a database. You probably need to add some kind of backend code to that as well, which you can integrate with your React app. And that's what's known as a kind of full stack application. So yeah, the scope of this project, we don't add anything to a database. But if you would like to do that, definitely give it a go and let me know how you get on. Oh, Kim, you're on mute, I think.
I was indeed a classic working from home virtual error there. But I was just saying that this question has come up quite a few times. But Kajal has asked, would you suggest learning HTML fully or JavaScript, I imagine as well, before trying to learn React, or is it not necessary?
Do you have thoughts on this one, Amelia?
I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I don't think I know anyone that knows HTML off by heart. It's very much something that you just sort of have a bit of an intro to. Maybe when you were like doing MySpace, actually you're probably too young for MySpace, you lot. But yeah, you don't need to know it off by heart. It's nice to have a general overview of how the sort of syntax and the punctuation works, but it's certainly not something you need to know off by heart, I would say. I don't know many software engineers that know it fully. Just to understand the general how it works. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you know what a component, like what the different kind of main tags are in HTML and what the syntax looks like, then that should be enough to get started with React.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Okay, I'm just scrolling back through. Okay. Okay, this is a really good question from Berkeley C. I'm still a little confused about the this component. Will React always use this, and does it just represent what you want to currently work with?
So yeah, this is like the scope of the component that you're in. Do you have anything to expand on, Amelia?
I think yeah, this is kind of saying you're talking about the current what's the word? The current instance of it. That's something you'll hear thrown about. So like if you've passed something in, you're saying this, it's what's currently being passed in. So it's the current instance, and it's something that becomes a bit more natural once you'll sort of understand once you have done a couple of projects. You'll be like, oh yeah, this makes sense now, or this, I didn't mean to say this. Yeah. But yeah, it's just saying the current instance that you are working with that you've just passed into that component. That's the I don't know how else to explain it, so I hope that answers your question.
That was great, thank you both so much. And I would say as well that just following on, to definitely, as Sarah said, get stuck in with a project or mini project, and you'll very quickly learn to use this, because you'll probably forget at the start to put this in, but once you get to know React and have a play with mini projects and that sort of thing, it will become second nature to just put this in.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So just reading through some more questions. Oh, really nice comment that I'll put up as well. From Alexandra, I really love this motto on your slide. A tech role is a journey, not a sprint, which I think everyone needs to remind themselves of every now and again. But just that was a nice one to show. And then another question from Kajal, actually, which is, I think a lot of people think about this. How do you organize yourself to learn so many different languages? Do you ever get mixed up with languages or programs? And this is a question for both of you, I think.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So it definitely can be confusing learning lots of different languages at once. I personally like to kind of get stuck into one, and then you can start adding other ones later on. And it does get easier. I'm sure people say this about learning a foreign language as well. Once you've learned one or two, you kind of learn how to learn a language. And especially in computing, a lot of the concepts are similar between different languages. So this, for example, is something that's used not just in React, but in other areas of programming. And things like arrays and for loops and conditionals, they're all kind of the same concepts, but the syntax is a little bit different. And so once you're familiar with the concepts, it does get easier to learn different languages. And I would say, like, you'll usually know when you've made a syntax problem and you've used the wrong language, because it either won't compile, or it'll look a bit weird, or it'll behave a little bit differently. So you can quite quickly correct your mistakes. That's one of the nice things about programming. You can kind of instantly see whether something works or not.
Yeah. I would agree. Learning the next language is slightly easier. I'm not going to say easy. So since I trained in like JavaScript and React, and then since I've started my job, I've been trying to learn like Swift, and then recently I've been learning Python. And whilst my head does feel like it's going to explode, it is definitely easier once you get to the next one, because you're like, oh, that concept is in React, a concept of state, which is in a lot of other languages. So it is quite transferable, but it can get a bit confusing. But try to maybe focus on one for a bit until you feel a bit comfortable before maybe going on and trying to learn a few. But it's it's easier on the second one.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for answering that one as well. I am just wary of the time, so I would, for the time being, I'll have to pause on the questions. I know so many of you have sent some in, and we will try and answer more at the end of the second part of the session today. But I just want to say a huge thank you to Sarah for sharing everything you know about React. It's been really, really great to hear a bit more about this incredible framework. And I would encourage everyone who joined the session today to have a play with React, do a mini project, maybe team up, group up, and see what you could build. But thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. So now we're moving on to the second part of the session tonight. And I'm delighted to bring on Asina from Zühlke, who is an HR specialist.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Okay. Oh, Kim is gone. All right. So I guess Emilia, we're on our own. Cool. Well, yeah, thank you, Kim, and obviously Sarah, for this great workshop. And yeah, thank you all for joining. What a productive Monday evening this has been. And now that you've learned some of the React skills and I guess broaden your own skill sets, let's have a brief look at how we are applying our technical skills here at Zühlke, what we do, how we do it, what some of our projects have been. And then Emilia will share some insights into her work and her journey as well. So hopefully you'll find that inspiring. I'm going to make an attempt and share my screen. Wish me luck. Totally got it. Okay.
Just admiring how clean your flat looks whilst you're doing that.
So can you already see my screen? Is that working?
Yeah, I don't know about everyone else.
Yes, we can.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so hello from Zühlke. This is Emilia and Ursina. You already heard a little bit from Emilia. I am the HR specialist that Kim kindly introduced. And I'm basically just here tonight to talk a little bit about Zühlke, what we do, how we do it. And I'm happy to take any questions as well, of course, at the end. Let's start with who we are. So Zühlke is an IT consulting company, which means that we build software solutions for our clients where they may not have the expertise or the capacity required. So sometimes companies have, challenges with building a new system, a new app, or they don't maybe know what to do with their data. So this is where Zühlke comes in, because we've got plenty of experts, to be precise, 1,400 people worldwide. Most of them are software engineers, data scientists, software testers, designers, IT project managers. If I had known that Sarah was going to mention BAs, business analysts, I would have included them as well, because we also do have business analysts. And some HR specialists like myself and other people who try to keep the business alive. And 120 of us are based in the UK. We have 16 offices in 10 different countries across Europe and Asia. We opened actually the 16th office in Vietnam. So exciting times. We're growing, which is always nice. But yeah, enough about who we are. Let's look at what we do. So basically, our expertise consists of those 4 pillars. However, here in the UK, I would say the top 2 are the most represented ones. So that includes digital solutions and application services. Those might be, for example, all these web solutions that Sarah was talking about a little bit earlier, websites or intranet, and yeah, literally all kinds of applications that you can think of, mobile apps as well. And then data and AI solutions. So like I mentioned earlier, sometimes companies have a whole lot of data, but they just don't really know how to process them and how to gain the actual real insights at the end. So that's what we can help with as well, with our data scientists that we have on board. And then we do a little bit of strategy and business innovation as well, because sometimes IT companies who are looking for support with their IT systems don't actually really know what they need. So we do consult on that as well. And then in other countries, not here in the UK, we do offer device like hardware engineering solutions as well. But most importantly, empowering ideas, and that empowering you is basically engraved in everything that we do. The empowering ideas refers to both client work, but also to how we work as a team. So when we have an idea, or when a client has an idea, we really try to make the best out of it. And this requires teamwork. This requires openness to breaking new grounds. And then this basically leads to empowering you. We need people who are able to do this. And therefore, we want all of our people to be empowered to take responsibility, to feel free to learn new skills, really take out some time from their work to look into new technologies or get inspired in order to then deliver great solutions. We use the best technologies and agile methodologies to deliver value to our customers. So basically, the best technologies is picking up on something that you've been discussing earlier about the many different technologies and languages that software engineers sometimes learn. And this is definitely the case at Zühlke. So we don't, because we're a consulting company, we don't just have one technology stack that we use all the time on our products, but we have to be flexible enough, of course, to adapt to the technology stack that our clients have. And therefore, we have a very flexible approach to technologies. Emilia told you earlier that she has started off with JavaScript, then learned iOS, then learned Python. So this is what our people are like really enjoying. They enjoy working with new technologies, learning new technologies as well, to really be experts and be able to advise customers as well in how they can innovate. And then we use agile methodologies. This is something we will talk about a little bit more shortly. Basically, it's an approach to software development that is a bit more flexible than the traditional waterfall approach, where a project was outlined and planned at the beginning, And then you might have been developing for 2 years until the end, when you might figure out that what you have been working on for 2 years isn't maybe even, solving the actual problem. So agile methodologies help failing fast, which is again what Sarah mentioned earlier, and realizing that you're failing maybe. And then lastly, we work in interdisciplinary teams, basically meaning that in our teams we have all sorts of experts. We have software engineers working together with business analysts, with project managers, with UI and UX experts, with data scientists. So really, we're a very diverse bunch of people who work together, share their knowledge, and brainstorm together to find the best solutions. Which we support from really early prototyping until the final implementation. Great. So let's move on and have a quick look at how we do things. What's a project at Zühlke like? Of course, it always starts with a customer. We have a customer who tells us what they want. Sometimes what they want is a little bit twisted, not addressing the actual issue, not realistic, or not good enough. So what we do is we do a discovery to really dig a little bit deeper to understand what the underlying issue is and how we can best support them. Once we've done that, we get organized. Basically meaning that we try to break the whole project down into smaller tasks. We outline those tasks, we describe them, we get the right people on board to execute those tasks. Again, this might be software developers, designers, data scientists, strategy advisors, whatever it takes. And then we start building. How we start building, like I mentioned, with agile methodologies. So here you see it in a little bit more detail. Basically, what it means is we start to develop, and then we get into this loop. We develop, we test, we deploy, and we review. And we do that all over again. So there are so many of these iterations that they basically usually just take around 2 weeks, for example, until we already deploy something. So after 2 weeks, we have an initial version of, for example, a website. Sometimes with older methodologies, like I mentioned, waterfall, this may have taken a lot longer. And of course, this product isn't perfect, but it allows us to be in touch with the customer at all times and basically find out if this is what we need to do. And we will identify very quickly if either from a customer side or from our side, something is not working or is going in a wrong direction. And then lastly, we launch. Great. Last one before Emilia's turn. We've got a couple of project examples that I brought here with me. The most known one at the moment, I would say, is certainly the NHS COVID-19 test and trace app that we have helped develop with over 70 people from our team. And this is a project that we've worked on as a distributed team, so with colleagues not only from the UK, but from other countries as well. And that had to be delivered extremely fast with many different stakeholders involved, with new technologies such as proximity risk calculations that we had to figure out for the first time. This hadn't been done before. So really exciting project that kept us very busy and very excited. And then I brought 2 other projects as well. We developed the HSBC banking app, for example, which is now being used by 5 million people. And this is an example for an industry that we do a lot of work with, the banking industry, and also for technology that we use a lot, mobile technology. And then lastly, on the right-hand side, we have a healthcare tracking system. Healthcare is another industry that we do a lot of work for. And in this particular case, we developed a system that allowed a hospital to gather real-life data from their cylinder valves to optimize oxygen usage. So a very interesting project as well to work on. And that's a bit of an overview of what we do. Any questions, let me know. But firstly, let's see what Emilia can tell you about her work and her journey.
Thank you. I'm not on mute, am I? Nope. Cool. Yeah. So, like I said before, I've been working here for less than a year now. So just 11 months. My job title is software engineer, but I'm actually working on a data project at the moment. So the project I'm on is a banking app, and they're basically trying to use data to make the journey more personalized for the users. So I'm doing a bit of iOS, as in Apple developing, and a bit of data stuff in Python as well. So it's quite exciting because they've got like lots of data to use, and they're trying to morph it into some way of basically making their customers even happier through using the app. So that's quite an exciting project. I also have a personal project that Zühlke are letting me do so that I can further my own learning, and I'm doing that with one of my friends, and that's going to be a recipe app. We're going to try and use machine learning through the camera to so you can point it at a pile of food and it tells you what you can make out of it. It's not been done yet. We haven't worked it out yet, but it's getting there. So technologies wise, like I mentioned before, I actually learned JavaScript and React first. I went to a coding boot camp called North Coders. So I completely changed career, like a lot of you guys might be trying to do. I was working in logistics. I was a chocolatier at some point. I was a kayak instructor. I've done a lot of random jobs abroad and in England. And I just decided one day I wanted something a bit more stable and something where I got to use my brain a bit more, and found coding. So I did North Coders, trained in JavaScript, and then when I got to Zühlke, there was a requirement, like they said, to start learning Swift because I was going to get put on uh, a banking app project, which is a really good thing that I like about consultancy. You get to learn different things. You can just get something thrown at you and you have to learn it. And to me, that's exciting. Some people might not like that, but I really like it. Career development wise, yeah, like I said, I'm quite new to this, so development wise, not sure yet, but I'm more of, I know all about changing careers. If anyone has a question about changing careers, I'm very, very good at that. But development wise, in Zühlke, it's amazing. They literally, they give you, like, basically I can just be like, can I buy this book? Can I buy this course? I'd like to do this. I'd like to learn this. And they try their absolute hardest to make sure that happens. They really, really care about what you want to do. So yeah, they're amazing. Just, I didn't get paid to say that either, just to clarify. Any career advice? So yeah, I already had a little scan of the comments of questions that were coming in. And one thing I've noticed is there's a lot of people talking along sort of confidence lines. It's obviously really hard to just go for it and be confident in yourself, because the thing is, with coding, you're never going to know it all. So it's hard to, I mean, it's really easy to be like, oh, I shouldn't apply because I don't know the whole of that language yet. And oh, I could do really bad. Just go for it. Literally just go for it. I only got the job at Zühlke by applying for a job that I didn't have the requirements for. They said you had to have a degree. I did not have a degree. And I met them at a careers fair, and then I was just like, I'm going to apply. And then I got the job. So you're allowed to be a bit cheeky. You've got to know that if you're learning to code, you're very valuable. There's a lot of shortage of software engineers. Just like she was saying before, there's loads of React jobs out there as well. So yeah, you're really, really valuable. You need to know that. So just apply to, and not just apply to whatever you want. Like, don't apply to things that say you need 5 years experience, but you know, if you don't ask, you don't get sometimes. So just try and be confident. I went for a job that I got turned down from the first time, and they said they turned me down because I wasn't confident. The next week I went to Zühlke and I was like, right, that's it then. I'm going in there like I own the place. And that's, although it's really hard, it's something you have to practice. But yeah, just try and believe in yourself if you do get an interview or anything. I could ramble on forever about things, but I think we'll just go to questions because otherwise you won't shut me up.
Let's do this. Let's see if there are any questions.
Brilliant. I think a question has come through from Juliet, and I think this will be really interesting. I think maybe for both of you. Juliet's asked, are there any developer internships at Zühlke?
There are.
Yeah.
Do you want to respond? Okay.
I think you probably know more about the actual actual internship.
Yeah, we do offer internships. They're always 3 months long and over the summer. And basically, we have multiple interns in both of our offices, London and Manchester, and they work as a team on an internal project, which tries to mimic a client project like we would do it normally in our real life jobs. So you would have an internal client that, for example, in the past, a project has been develop an onboarding app for new Zühlke employees. And so a hiring manager, for example, has been your client and told you what they needed for new joiners of the team to know. And then you had to group with the other interns. You have to see if there are any other people that you need to involve, more senior people, employees from Zühlke, who might provide knowledge that you might need, or who might help with the process, the agile process, and so on, and then give it a go. So it's really trying to mimic a client project, working with agile methodologies, working with different technologies as well. And yeah, like I said, that's always over the summer, three months long. And I think I have to say for this summer, we're already in the middle of the process of hiring our interns. So it might be too late already to apply for this year. However, do try for next year if that's a consideration, or, you know, consider graduate roles as well. That's what Amelia did.
I was on mute again. And a question's come in from the Emily Rose 92. For someone coming from a recruitment background but wanting to transition into product management, would you usually need your product professionals to have a strong technical background?
At Zühlke specifically, I think if we hire product managers externally, we would be looking for that, just because it's quite helpful in collaboration with all the team members, with the software engineers, data scientists, and also with our clients to have a deep understanding of technology. However, having said that, when we hire external people, we do look for that skills. Many companies nowadays have amazing internal programs to develop their staff. Amelia just mentioned that earlier as well. At Zühlke, this is really important to us. So we actually spend 10% of our annual turnover to further develop our employee skills and help them grow in their career. So we do offer many possibilities to learn and to get insights into other disciplines as well. And I know that Zühlke is not the only company doing that. There are so many others out there. The big tech companies that you can think of, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, they're all doing it. They're trying to keep their staff, to retain their staff by offering such possibilities. So do try to get a foot into the door, and then just, you know, try to pursue your goals early on. Don't be shy. Share what your goals are and develop a plan with your manager how you can work on these. I don't know if you want to add anything, Amelia.
No, I think you covered that one. I'm not a project manager, so I won't try and guess. Oh, have we frozen?
I think I'm back.
You are.
Yeah.
Gone again?
By the looks.
Sure. Okay, shall we just try? Oh, she has shared a question. Yes. Okay, Louise, was the bootcamp the only thing you did before applying for software jobs?
So I had actually done a foundation year. It was like, I think the foundation year, the idea of it's kind of like A-levels, but I did it in mathematics. And additional maths and computing, but there wasn't really that much coding in it. And that's how I decided to try and get back into the tech field. But then before I did North Coders, I started going to meetups and stuff, and people really like reading that on your CV. They really like talking to you about it in interviews. So I went to one called Code and Stuff, which is a girls only coding group in Manchester. There's another one called Code Bar. So obviously it's a bit hard at the moment with everything, but the fact that you guys are in this tech talk now when you don't even get free wine, like you're getting loads of loads of events when everything's on, it just speaks loads. So like just put even stuff like this, put it on your CV that you are in these certain communities. And I did a lot of that, and Zühlke were really interested in that in my interview, hearing about stuff I'd done. I'd also volunteered at hackathons. If you can get involved in a hackathon, they really love that, because being able to code on your own is one thing, but coding with a group of other people is a really different skill, and it's a skill that you need to have as a software engineer, unless you're in a very backwards company where they just put you in a corner, but that's not really how things work anymore. So it's really fun as well working in a team, and you have less of the wanting to throw your laptop at the wall thing, because people will see a bug or you'll work out each other's bugs, and it's just a bit nicer, I'd say. So I can't remember whether I answered the question properly there. Yeah, so no, I had done some coding and stuff before, and North Coders in particular, you have to do loads of prep work before you go on the course. They make sure that you have to anyway. So yeah, it didn't just sort of land straight from that, but yeah, anything you can get on your CV is good.
I think because Kim is currently not online, I'm just going to have a look at the questions myself. And we got two somewhat related questions from Alexandra and Jules around CVs. So if we're looking at self-taught web dev CVs, what will be the cues that we will be looking for that will prompt to invite someone? Oh, yeah, cool. And somewhat related is a question from Jules. Not a silly question at all. Where would you put attending meetups in your CV? Amelia, do you have a tip?
For the one on the screen?
Yeah.
So I think I know, well, what attracted Zühlke to my CV from what I know is, like I said, the external groups, the fact that I'd done a hackathon, and I went to talk to them at a careers fair, and what really sparked her interest, I think, is when I started talking about how I wanted to just learn loads of different things and how excited I was to basically not stick to the same thing, because some people, well, mostly because it's a consultancy, and I was obviously keen to learn whatever got thrown my way, whereas obviously some people want to specialize in a certain thing and wouldn't want to be swayed. So it's such a vast field. Just find out what skills you want to give a company, and then work out which company would fit for you. Don't necessarily do it the other way around, maybe in your first job, but yeah, like I said, you're really valuable. So just find out what's your skill set, what sort of industry it matches in, because it's just such it's in every industry now, pretty much, coding. So yeah, pick and choose, be picky, and then maybe after you get turned down from like 10 jobs, if that ever happens, like I was really, really, really lucky with Zühlke, but yeah, try to tailor. Yeah, I won't go on again.
I just saw Sarah's comment, involvement with Code First Girls is also a great thing to put on your CV. Oh yes, 100%.
Yes,
and I was just, yeah, I was definitely gonna echo what Emilia says. Any like extracurricular involvement in coding, just put it on there. I think that's really what can differentiate, what can differentiate you from others. Any prizes you might have won. Some of the hackathons give out prizes for the winning teams. Just put it on there. And where you would put that, usually you start with your education, then you put your job experience bit, and then you put any further skills or some PhDs at their publications there, which I don't have. But you may just add any courses or coding groups that you're going to. And I think another bit of advice that I'm copying from Emilia from past conversations that we've had, network, go meet people, go speak to them. Don't be afraid to speak to hiring managers as well, even though that might sometimes be a bit intimidating. It's easier to speak to other software developers, but speak to hiring managers as well, because it can make a difference, you know, if you don't fulfill some of the requirements on paper, but the person knows you and knows that you might be a great cultural fit, which is actually something that companies are looking for more and more. Most companies have understood by now that a skill can be learned, but an attitude is something that you need to bring. So if you can already convince a hiring manager of your attitude and cultural fit before your skills on paper are assessed, that's definitely it's something which can help a ton. So I hope this this helps.
So I've just jumped on really quickly. So I'm Helen from Code First Girls as well. Apologies that Kim is having a few internet issues, so I've been sitting in the background just in case, very luckily. But just really quickly wanted to wrap up the session and thank you both for joining us today. And as Kim mentioned at the beginning, the recording for this session today will be online for a week or two after today. So if you want to catch up or have a look back on anything, please feel free. But yes, thank you everyone for joining today, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Helen, and everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and that was a great session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Sarah.
Bye.